I came in June 1970 as the first director of Black Studies. I invited Jack Kirkland to join me as associate director of Black Studies in June 1970. Black Studies was born in the days of high protest. So coming in 1970 was really not an easy task. Black students questioned my integrity, my blackness. They wondered if I was just a token Negro. And there were many unanswered questions at that time. Even the faculty had questions about the importance or significance of Black Studies at that time. So one of the things that they asked me to do to check out my capabilities was to give an address to the faculty over at Whitmore House. So I had just developed the paper on the changing image of the Black American from Negro to African American at that time. And I talked about the transitions we were making. And of course, they were very surprised to hear about that. I said, we no longer wanted to be called Negro or colored, that we were African Americans. I also introduced the bitch test at that time. And of course, they were shocked. Here, what is a bitch test? I was talking about cultural bias and standardized testing. So that created some ear-raising questions, but I was able to tell them, And then later, I had to give another interview or talk on Ebonics. And they were quite surprised, that I had put together two words, a portmanteau, which means two words, to make Ebonics, from ebony and phonics. And of course, both of those situations gave Washington a great deal of visibility, which at the time I did not know. They said, who is this Negro over there talking about bitch test and Ebonics? So that gave me some credibility at that time. So I came there in 1970 as the first director of Black Studies, and I think I had a great career there during that time. Great career. Well, it's interesting, Gerald, that I started out at Washington University as a first-year graduate student in 1957. And here, I was being considered to come back at a higher level. I was working at the VA hospital at that time as chief psychologist. So when Marshall Hall came over and interviewed me and asked me to consider, I did. I wanted to go in at the highest level. I did not want to take any sub-level jobs. So our Hurst was a dean at that time. I told him that I would only accept a full professorship with tenure and money to support a research program on the outside. So he said, wow, Bob, that's pretty heavy. I said, well, under those conditions. So I decided to take it because I saw a great deal of opportunity in doing things with African Americans in Black Studies, where the position I had as chief psychologist did not provide me with those opportunities. So I really wanted to work with African Americans. So there were other benefits that I looked at. I had 8 children. At that time, the university provided tuition support for all of my kids. All of my kids went to college through WashU University. I saw great pension benefits. It was just a great opportunity. much better than I thought I had at the VA. Well, this was really all new to me, and I had to do a lot of research. This was right at the sort of in the middle or closer to the end of the protest movements around the country. And Black Studies really was not a very popular thing, so I had to put together some creative things at WashU because it was kind of unique. So I wanted, first of all, as you probably remember, I wanted to establish WashU Black Studies program with African philosophy, which was not very popular in those days, and with Afrocentric values. I also wanted to have make available for students to travel abroad, internationally, to Africa, Jamaica, and other foreign countries. Then I really wanted to establish, let's say, an honors program for Black students at WashU to sort of stimulate students to, achieve good grades. And I think that had a great motivation. And I wanted to establish other kinds of programs within the university, such as the Black Repertory Choir, the Black Gospel, choir, Black Choir, and things of that nature. So I had awards program, the WB Awards, and so forth. So I really wanted to kind of make Black Studies visible within the university, as well as in the community. So I hired Jack Kirkland, who was in community. So Jack did a lot of work out in the community to tie in our program. Then I wanted to have research, but I did not want to do research under Washington University's monitoring, because the research I wanted to do was very controversial, perhaps would not be approved there. So I asked for a certain amount of money from the university to set up an Institute of Black Studies. I did get the money, and we had an Institute of Black Studies, and we had a number of grants through the Institute, close to $6 million. Then, so we were able to do that. So I had outside research. I had students going to traveling internationally. Then I had honors program. And the other thing is I wanted to have a solid academic program. So I had Ron Bailey came in to teach history of African American studies. Bob Watson taught introduction. I taught black psychology. And, so we had a pretty good faculty going, not a large faculty, but a small. So I thought that then we had made an impact on the university. There was one faculty member there, Vic Levine, who really came in and gave us a lot of support. Vic had been to Africa and so forth. He was the main person who supported us. So I thought I had a good beginning. I had my ducks lined up. Let me just go back a couple of years. I got my master's in psychology at Wayne State. I did my first piece of research on bias in testing. I tested black kids versus white kids. Black kids did much better on culturally fair tests than they did on conventional tests. So when I developed the bench test, the acronym stands for the Black Intelligence Test of Cultural Homogeneity, meaning that all of the items are pulled from black culture. My prediction was that African Americans would do much better on the Black Intelligence Test than it would on conventional tests, and white students would do very poorly on the bench test than black students. That was supported. So I got a lot of publicity on that around the country to show, and many white students could not pass that test. Here's an example. A black suspect was being interviewed by a white cop in Louisiana for rape. And after a while, the black suspect said, "Look, get me a lawyer, dog." I said, "What?" He said, "Get me a lawyer, dog." Well, the white guy was confused. He didn't know what he was saying. You know what he was saying?
Give me a lawyer, dog.
He said, "We don't have any lawyer dogs around here."
No, yeah.
Huh? So the cop said, "We don't have any lawyer." He said, "Get me a lawyer, dog." What he was saying, do you know?
Give me a lawyer.
Dog. He was calling the guy dog. Yeah, okay. So I had to explain a lot of that to whites, that blacks had some interesting ways of communicating that whites could not understand. So then I had a grant from NIMH to do a conference on developing black language in black children. So at that particular conference in St. Louis, I coined the term Ebonics, which is a portmanteau, Portmanteau, putting two words together. I put together ebony and phonics to make Ebonics. Now, we were trying to get or provide, find an African root for many of the African languages African Americans talks that we have. And Ebonics seems to cover that. Well, that created, of course, a lot of controversy, but I did have a grant also for Ebonics. And Ebonics, I still get questions from people about Ebonics. It was very controversial, but I think it gave a lot of awareness. But many kids, black kids, were coming to school speaking a language different from the other kids, and they were being penalized. And I wanted to bring about an awareness of that, and I think it did help quite a bit. They provided a one-time support because I did not want any interference from the university over the research that we were doing. They never criticized me. In fact, I was able to get a couple of faculty to join us out there in the Institute, Art Schulman and another one. Now, the other thing is, I also had a master's level training grant at WashU. I had 120 students to go through that program, and about 20% of them went on for PhDs. That was one of my greatest achievements. And that program came through Black Studies and the psychology department. Horace Mitchell was not one of my students, but he was a great supporter. He took over the program while I was on leave one year. Horace became president of Cal State University in Bakersfield. He just retired in July, but I talked to him the other day. He said, "Bob, I'm on my way to Paris." Did you ever meet Horace? Oh, Horace is a great guy. He got his PhD there in counseling. But the counseling program was one of my greatest achievements. Now, the other program, the strong academic program, I thought we had strong academic program. We had more students making better grades. They were more motivated, and it was just a different atmosphere. The students were no longer protesting. They were doing very good work. I stayed there 22 years. I had some heart problems, and I felt that I should look after my health. I was looking at this scripture. What profits a man who becomes very rich, very wealthy, and loses health? So I resigned a little early, after 22 years. But I'm doing very well, although I do have some health problems now. But I would say my greatest achievements were the Minority Mental Health Training Program and the internal programs that we had plus the Institute of Black Studies.
What were your biggest disappointments?
Huh?
What were your biggest disappointments?
You know, I've been thinking about that. The university treated me so good, Gerald. I can't say that I had any disappointment. You know, I asked Early for the university to provide us with a department, but that was only 2 or 3 years, and that was too early, so they said no. I was disappointed, but I understood why they did that. I was never criticized for what I was doing. You know, the university supported me. We always had a good budget for the faculty that we had. So I can't say that I had disappointments, yeah. My experiences were positive with the university.
That's good. What did you enjoy most about being director?
About being a director? Well, you know, it was quite a unique experience, first of all, being a professor and director. And I felt on an equal level with many of the other faculty members. You know, I would go to faculty. I did not feel inferior. I felt that the contributions that I was making equal any of the contributions that they had, because I had several grants through the university, and some of the faculty didn't have any grants. You know, so I really felt on top of things in the university. I just read where, what is it about, let's see what it said. About 400 Black Studies programs now. About 20% of them offer degrees, some master's degrees, 5 offer PhDs. And, you know, I would like to have moved on toward getting a master's program in Black Studies, but of course we're not a department. Perhaps you'll do that now, for some graduate education. I was disappointed, but I understood why. We didn't have the faculty now. The only other thing that I say that I was disappointed in, it really wasn't. When they were doing, the construction people were doing the social work building, they hung a rope around a dummy's neck outside. The students and I went straight to Danforth's office. Danforth made them take that sign down, put an article in Student Life, and a public apology for doing that. And I thought, you know, that was the kind of support that we got. So I can't say that I was disappointed, but we asked the administration for something. They came forward with it. And that's unusual at a university like that, you know, but we did. When I became director, you know, this was sort of in the days of protest. And we had to fight a lot of the myths that had been created by us. So we were in a deconstructive phase, trying to deconstruct these myths and reconstruct the truth as it came past. I think Black Studies have moved beyond that now to a more mature, functioning department or program, and it's now offering constructive ideas, moving forward rather than trying to correct a lot of the things back there. And I don't think the students are into a protesting or fight as much. There may be some protests, but not like it was back in those days when I came along. So I look at a lot of positive aspects of African American studies now. I know several people who have moved on to higher positions in African American studies. One of my students from Mizzou, Stephanie Bradley, was at St. Louis U. Now he's out in California, director. You know, and there's some good people now. Stephanie's got a couple of books out. You know, one of them is on the protest of Columbia University in the '60s.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, I know Bradley.
you know about that?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, yeah. I was on his dissertation committee up at Mizzou. And his wife, I tutored his wife too, Tracy. You know, I was up there for 3 years. I went up there in 2001 and stayed to 2004. Then I decided I was through with teaching. I trashed it really for that time. Yeah, but so what was that last question?
I had asked you about what you thought was different about Black studies.
Oh, yeah.
today than when you
Yeah, I
were
said, you
there.
know, they're, of course, you know, they're out of that deconstructive phase and reconstruct. Now they're into a more mature, developing programs that has a variety, makes a variety of contribution with scholars and so forth. It's very well accepted, you know, that back in those days, there was question. But I think now it's, yeah. So it's very, very different. And I haven't really kept up with the development of Black studies, but I, you know, just for what I get snitches here and there. I think that would be great. Yeah, I think you know, get your ducks in a row and do it. The thing about a PhD is that you have to have a strong curriculum and strong faculty who is able to help the student do the research, you know, do good research, whether it's quantitative or qualitative. A lot of students like to do qualitative research, which is weaker, but and to make a contribution. And boy, I'd like to be in. That would be great, but I'm not able to. I think that would be a good move. Yeah. There are only 5 in the country now offering PhDs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But WashU would be the 6th. Yeah.
Well, the faculty's thinking about it.
Huh? The fact thing about, oh, good. That's Black Studies has many issues that it needs to be involved in: political, economic, health, deal with health disparities. You know, I think that it should have these prongs in a lot of these areas, and to offer whatever assistance that is can. For example, in health disparities, there is a great difference in the way Black people are treated, and it needs to be researched, you know, in these areas where we are falling behind. And I don't think other programs are really going to look at the Black part, but Black Studies can do that. Good dissertations can come out of things like that, economics. So I see with the PhD program or even a master's program that you can have some good papers coming out on that. Good research. And might even be able to get some money for it, you know, through National Institute of Mental Health or some of those organizations. But I do see further growth in those directions, you know, not just trying to demystify or deconstruct, but to advance, look further, just as the other more mature professions are doing. And pretty soon it will be looked upon as a, look at sociology has come a long way. It's nobody criticizes except one time the university did criticize, but now as a department now,
Yes.
back here,
The
yeah.
university brought it back.
Huh?
The university had gotten rid of sociology.
Right.
Now it's brought it back.
Brought it back, yeah. But I think the Department of Black Studies will be able to offer, some good research in these areas. Yeah. Book writings. And, I've written about 5 books now, Gerald. I wrote one on racism, one on raising black kids to be okay, the history of black psychology, Ebonics. I think that's 4 or 5. Last time I mentioned that I was one of the founders of the National Association of Black Psychologists back in those days, and I represented Washington University at that conference. That was in September 1968, and I was the second president of the organization. And I have been an elder for 50 years. We just celebrated 50 years there too. In fact, someone asked me one time, I don't know who it was, he said, "Do you think Black Studies is going to be around long?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "It'll be around as long as we need to, until y'all stop oppressing us." Some guy asked me that. But, I kind of came back at it. Sometimes I get a little hostile answer, I think, but that's the best I could do at that time. Well, one of the things that we had to remember that in Africa there was a variety of professions or activities such as art, language, writing, and so forth. And I wanted to include as much of that as I could. So at that time, in theater, there was an African lady, Naidu. So I invited her to establish a program, and she did. It worked very well, the Black Repertory Theater. So that was one part of it, Also, there was a lot of, in Africa, singing, choirs, and so forth. And we brought a lot of that, to America. And I knew, can't think of the day he passed, asked him to establish the Black Choir. And that was very successful, too. Duncan later took it on, but I was trying to think of the first guy. He got his PhD over there.
Was that Tilford Brooks?
Tilford Brooks, right. Yeah, I knew Tilford and his sister. So these were the kind of things that I was looking forward for the short time that I was only there 4 years, but for the short time I wanted to see honors program, choir, theater, things of that nature, And I thought you still have honors program, right? Yeah.
Yes,
right. And Ron's on the faculty, isn't
right,
he?
Ron's on the faculty.
That's been over 30-some years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it has survived.
Yeah. So a lot of the things that you put in place are still there.
Still there. Well, I wanted to have a good route. I didn't want to go in arguing and fussing at the administration. I wanted all my ducks together before I took the position. When I got full professorship with tenure and institute's money set up, they gave me a one-room office. And I said, "That's okay. I'll take one room." But I didn't try to do any fighting or anything like that. I said, I'd write memos to the chancellor and let him know what I was doing. To the dean. See, the dean was a psychologist at that time, Ira Hirsch, so I knew him very well. And I did okay. And you look like you're doing okay with 12 faculty, boy. Right?
Well, we're doing all right.
Now, you came there about 82?
82, that's right.
So that's 18 and 8.
When Gerald Patton was the director.
Right. 37 years?
Yeah, 37
You gonna make 50?
I don't know.
I think
Not working, no. I hope to make 50 and still live, but I'm not.
I think Jack Kirkland's trying to make 50.
Yeah, Jack is still up. Yeah, Jack is still up there.
It'd be 49 this year.
Yeah, Jack is still up there. Rudy Clay is still up there too. And,
Sure, Rudy's still there,
Rudy
yeah.
is still there. And Rudy was there before I got there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So,
Oh, I know Rudy. He's a great librarian. He used to really help me out, man. I called him and said, Rudy, I need this, man. He any book that I needed. Yeah.
so you started in 1970. How long did you keep the job?
I kept it 4 years
4 years.
because I was awarded the training grant, and I kept that for 12 years. Now, I could have stayed on as director in training, but the university said it would be better for me to make a decision for one or the other, because I would be drawing money from two pots, and they didn't want that. Because I would have to take something from training grant. So I decided to go ahead. It was a good program. I had some good students come through there, good students. And some of them still call me and so forth. A lot of them live right here in St. Louis. So I took it for 4 years. I recommended Jack Kirkland. Kirkland took it for 1 year. Then he went off to Jefferson City as director of transportation. And he never came back to Black Studies or went over to social work. Then I think the guy from Purdue came in. What are you looking for? I just say this. He had high aspirations. He wanted to put on a big theater. And the people he brought here were great actors and so forth, but it was not well done. And people got that didn't know the parts and so forth. So I think Sam was very embarrassed about that. He left. I mean, they had to read this stuff, man. I went to see one of them. Hey, I appreciate giving it, I don't know how long I'll be here. I've had some ups and downs. I've had a lot of falls. One of the things is that my illness, I have weakness down here. And I had about 12 falls past 2 years. Broke my hip, so forth. And I'm 89 now. I'm close to 90. I'll be 90 next year. And I don't know if I'll make it through next year, but I'm still peeing on the grass. But I feel pretty good. My doctor told me this, Gerald. I have what is called congestive heart failure, and what was happening, I was getting a lot of shortness of breath. Now my doctor said that I would be going in and out of the hospital every 2 or 3 months. Don't panic, that this illness, there's no cure for it, but it's treatable. A lot of treatment. So I go in for treatment, for tune-ups. I was just in last Monday for a tune-up. I stayed 1 day. But every 2 or 3 months, I have to go. Ambulance comes out, it picks me up, take it. Yeah. So I don't know how long that's going to last. My wife passed last year. Yeah, and June 15th last year. And I'll probably meet her one day, I don't know, We were married 69 and a half years.
Wow, that's something.
We were trying to make 70, but we didn't make it. Wow. That's a long time, ain't it, man? Huh?
That's an achievement.
8 children, 17 grandkids, 12 great-grandkids, and 2 great-great-grandkids. I have 5 generations living right now, 5. Huh? Boy, I tell you, it's been a good life. I've had a great career. I've done everything I want to do. I don't want to do it anymore. I would. Like God has been good to me, very good. So, what I'm doing right now, Gerald, this is the last thing. I'm not writing the books, but I'm doing one-liners of thought that my kids can just put them together and so forth. I have a lot of interesting ideas, but I don't want to put them in sentences, just lines of thought. And so I keep a little notebook. I wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, man. I had one last night. Anyway, you know, I have my recorder there too.
And you say your children are keeping the track of?
Oh yeah. I have a tablet. I fill the tablet up, so I got to go to the place and have those printed out. They'll put some more on there. I mean, that's my creativity, you know. I just do that. Yeah, I get about 4 or 5 a day. I had one the other day. It was kind of interesting. Oh, this is something. Why is that when you ask somebody where you're going, they'll tell you, "Oh, I've been down to John's house." Or you ask them where they've been, they say, "Oh, I'm going up to the store." Hey, I thought that was kind of cute. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah.
Somebody, you ask them where they're going, they tell you where they've been. And that's what I have a lot of these sayings. Some are natural colloquialism, you know, but some that are created for me. And, I'm not going to have that print. But my memoir is written.
Oh.
Yeah. I told my kids I did not want it published until after my demise.
Okay.
But because of the deaths, my wife and my daughter, I might go ahead and have it printed, but I've had it written for about a year with pictures and annotation, yeah. So I don't know. They want me to have it printed now.
Yeah.
But I go back to my beginnings all the way up to now.
Very valuable.
Man, look, I was talking about some things I had done. I hadn't even thought had any imprint. But God, I did a lot of things. And I wasn't aware of that. You know, like you do these things, but you don't consider to be a legacy or anything like that. They're writing a book in Arkansas on my life. Mm-hmm. This lady brought back a list about that long. I said, man, I didn't think that was important. You're going to have a long list too, Gerald.